Hi, this is Thomas with Believe in the Run.
This is Megan with Believe in the Run.
Megan, we've got the latest edition of ASICS Racers. Well, at least one out of the three.
Yeah. This is the Metaspeed Edge Tokyo.
Okay, I'll go with that. This is like the third or fourth version, and they all kind of look the same.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit confusing. They look very similar. There's 3 different shoes now. This one was called the Tokyo. There was also a Tokyo like 4 years ago or something.
It was like, so the original Tokyo is when there was going to be the Tokyo Olympics. So that was a while ago. And then we had the Paris for the Paris Olympics. And now we're going back to Tokyo for World Championships. So we're back to Tokyo.
Yeah.
But the color of the shoe looks a lot like the Tokyo one before.
Yeah. But this is a brand new shoe. We've got a new foam, a new setup here. So let's get into it.
All right, let's start with the Motionwrap top.
Yeah, so this is called Motionwrap 3.0. It's really light. It's barely there, but it works well enough to keep your foot locked down, and also it's pretty comfortable.
Well, I originally went and did the lace lockdown because I was getting a little bit of heel lift in it. I always kind of expect that from a shoe with a plate just because it does have that lever, you know, that kind of like is trying to keep the heel out so you can get that energy off the toe. As I wore it, was able to take the lace lock off and didn't notice it quite as much. What I did notice though, this is super breathable. I
mean, you can see through this shoe if you're wearing a patterned sock, if you will. You're going to see it all through here. But I found it worked really well. I think it's sort of exactly what you want from a race day shoe. It's as minimal as you can get, but still provides enough to feel confident.
You always hear this talk about foot shape shoe, foot shape this. This shoe, when I put my foot in it, this was the shape of my foot. So I was like, it's got a foot-shaped toe box. This is great. You could see everything. And I thought that part of the upper fit really well. I guess they call it the vamp.
The tongue is barely there. It's not gusseted, which is always kind of a bummer. I feel like that sort of really secures your foot down. But I didn't have any issues with it moving around or anything.
All right, let's get down to the new foam that's in this.
All right, so the new foam, Asics is calling FF Leap, is what's in their third race day shoe, the Ray, which is a full slab of this foam. But in this setup, which is the Edge, you have the FF Leap directly beneath the foot, you have a carbon fiber plate, and then you have the FF Turbo Plus.
What you're gonna notice about this plate shape, it is more of like a spoon shape, so it dips down underneath that front part of your foot here, and that gives you a little more room for comfort when you're landing to give you that feeling of like a soft landing, but then you feel that plate hit and the toe off kind of gives you that spring. And it's kind of funny, when I first started wearing this shoe, I wasn't sure I was feeling as much of it as I would like, but as I got more miles in the shoe, I started to feel a little more of that cushioning and a little bit more of the bounce back.
Yeah, so we're not going to talk a whole lot about the Sky, which is the version of the shoe that looks very similar, but they've got flip-flop foams and a different shaped carbon plate.
When you say flip-flop, not like the kind that you go to the beach with.
No, just the FF Leap is under the carbon fiber plate in the Sky versus right under the foot.
Yeah, it gives it a different mechanical feel. We're gonna do a review. I'll do it with Robbie since I have miles on both these shoes, and we can kind of go over what that difference is. But for this review, let's just keep it to the Edge.
So I really like the softer foam. I would say the FF Leap is a softer foam than the FF Turbo Plus, which is at the bottom. And I really like that because I think the step-in feel, and then also when you're out on the roads, I think it just softens the landing a little bit and then gives you that bounce, which is my preference over a firmer foam.
Now, when you say soft, it's not super soft, it's not super spongy. It is a little more firm than I actually expected. And the way that this foam works, where you have this top layer on this and the FF Turbo Plus underneath, gave this shoe maybe a little more stability than the Sky. That extra cushioning up here really felt good, but I did think that this, being in the heel, gives you a little more stability, not that it's a stability shoe at all.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you. And I still think in terms of race day shoes, Asics has always, in my opinion, fallen on the firmer side of race day, but I feel like every iteration of this shoe has gotten a little bit softer and a little bit bouncier. And so, like, I think this is a definite upgrade from the previous version, and it's definitely my preference in terms of underfoot feel. I still would classify it as a somewhat firmer ride for a race day shoe.
If you go back 2 versions, back to the original Tokyo, and when we ran the Tokyo Marathon, I actually chose to go with the Super Blast that time over that, just because I liked the feeling underfoot and I thought it was a better marathon shoe for me. Now, would I make that same choice? I actually think I would go with this shoe for the marathon and really enjoy it. I think that when I went with the Tokyo one, I knew that I had done several marathons in a row and I wasn't going for like a PB or a PR, and I was like, the Super Blast will be good enough. But I do think this shoe, if I was ready to go, even if I wasn't going for a PB, this would still be comfortable enough for the 26.2 miles.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I have to agree. I think I would definitely choose this shoe for 26.2, even if I wasn't going at an all-out effort. A lot of that maybe harshness that I sort of felt in some of the iterations before this has definitely gone away, and it is more of a comfortable race shoe where it doesn't feel terrible at those slower paces.
Then we get down to the outsole here. We got that ASICSGRIP. I thought it did a terrific job. We're obviously running over all types of terrain here when we're doing our workouts. The grip was fantastic in all the treatments. This rubber gave me confidence to tackle anything, and we ran in some wet conditions.
Yeah, this rubber is very grippy. In fact, when you first take them out of the box and you're walking around your house, you will not be sneaking out because it's very apparent that you are walking on fresh rubber.
We're doing longer runs with some pickups. Most of them, because I'm not in marathon training right now, we're around the 10-mile mark, and I was running with a group, so I was running paces that would be my marathon pace for some of these ones, and this shoe I felt like did a really nice job. It lacks a little bit of some of the things that we're excited about in like that propulsive toe off or something like that we're seeing in some of the more mechanical style shoes like an Alpha Fly, or even now when you talk about like the Puma shoe where you get that kind of feeling of a pop off the toe. Between the Sky and the Edge, this one had more of the mechanical feel underfoot by getting that little bit of bounce off the plate, but it still didn't pack a wallop. Like, it's not like sometimes you really get that reinforcement with every step. I thought this was nice, but it's not going to give you that super pop.
One thing that we definitely have to mention, which is pretty impressive about this shoe, considering you get 39.5 millimeters of foam in the heel and 34.5 in the forefoot, 5 millimeter drop. It's so light. My women's 7.5 actually came in just under 5 ounces, like 4.9. In fact, this shoe actually weighed 4.6 on the scale, and this one was 4.9. So under 5 ounces, around 140 grams for a race shoe is pretty fantastic.
And I'm going to take the average between mine because, again, my right shoe weighed a little bit more than my left shoe. If I average them out, it weighs right around 6 ounces flat, which is insane. Like, we're talking about these super shoes getting lighter and lighter. I don't know that I need to go any lighter than this. This has the cushioning, it feels light on the foot, and we're trying the shoes that are even lighter than this. I don't know that I need to go and scrape everything out to just get the lightest shoe. I think this provides a really light shoe with all the bells and whistles that you'd want from a marathon shoe. So there's a little bump in the price.
It's $270 now.
I think it's $269.99.
Okay, it's $270, which actually, if you think about a lot of the race day shoes, which are pushing $300, maybe not so bad.
Well, I think the light weight of this and where you're going to put it in that lineup, it's getting really light. Like, this is maybe less than an ounce heavier than an Evo Pro.
Yeah.
And that's a $500 shoe. So then $270 starts sounding like a bargain.
Okay, so we'll start with form, and I really liked a lot about this shoe. I think I'm going to ding it for 2 things. One is that it just looks so similar to the previous versions that it makes it more confusing that there's 2 shoes in the lineup that are very similar, and then also that these look very similar and similar to the previous versions.
There's a yawn factor for me. It kind of makes the shoe more boring than you're like, I've seen this before. Like, you haven't really changed the aesthetic or even done a new color that we're like, oh wow, I haven't seen something like that. The shoe's silhouette pretty much looks like it has since it almost came out.
Yeah, and then we already talked about this, but the other thing is the naming, Tokyo. It's confusing. We're going back in time, but we're new. Anyway, all that to say, it's going to get a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I was tempted to give this a 5 out of 5 just because the weight, just the design is good, but overall looks falls into this category, and that's where you got this. I just want something a little new looking.
Yeah. All right, so moving on to fit out of 5. What are you giving it?
I'm going to give it a 4, and I talked about why. I think there is still a little bit of play in the heel of this shoe.
Yeah.
It did die down after a couple runs, that it wasn't as extreme. But if you're spending $270 on these shoes, you want to save the shoe you don't want to break it in too much before race day. So that's where I'll give it a 4.
Yeah, I'm also going to give it a 4. It definitely fits true to size, and I feel like it's pretty accommodating for my wider foot. Kind of what you were saying, I think just a little bit more structure, like the fact that the tongue isn't gusseted, and then also it's pretty low cut around the ankle, could be a little bit more structured.
I say yes, but at the same time, to keep that weight down.
Sure, but so we agree, we'll just knock a little bit, 4 out of 5.
All right, function.
I think I'm also going to go 4 out of 5 for this one. I think this truly is a race day shoe. It's extremely light. It has a really nice foam underfoot. It feels fast. I'm not sure it would be my number 1 pick for race day, but it's definitely up there.
I know what you like in a race day shoe, and I think this is where I knocked it just a little bit, and I also went with a 4. I'm getting so used to getting feedback from the shoe, that kind of sensation of, I'm going to launch you forward, I'm going to lean you forward. Either shoes are doing it with extreme toe-offs, or they're doing it with some sort of mechanical component here to give you kind of like that bounce off the toe. This one feels similar throughout the stride. It does have a nice feel, and when I get into it with Robbie and I go over the sky, maybe we'll get a little bit more into the difference between the way that feels coming through your stride. But for me, I think you could tweak a little more personality out of this shoe. I don't know if it's changing the durometer of the FF Leap and giving it a little more sponge. I don't know, but I wanted to feel that sense of like launching me forward.
Like the shoe's working harder than you are.
Yeah.
So I think we agreed 4s across the board here. So
which is a pretty decent score. It's
12
out of 15. So
Good math.
that is definitely a green light.
Yeah. Each iteration of this shoe has just gotten
better.
slightly better. I think I'm just waiting for that like really big wow factor.
Yeah.
But
the other problem is all of these companies are coming out with a decent running
Yeah.
shoe now, and we're seeing stuff from brands that a year ago didn't have anything to choose from, that, or at least they had something, but maybe it didn't make it up to this level. Where now we're starting to see a lot of shoes coming out that you can really tune what you want out of your race day shoe. And where this would have, I think even a year ago, been like a knock your socks off, 5 out of 5
Yeah.
across the board. Now the competition is raising the bar, and this is a really fantastic shoe. I don't think Asics did themselves a favor by making 2 similar shoes that are so similar that now not only do you have to choose between other shoes, you have to choose between an Asics shoe that feels very similar. And some people will say, well, there's an Alpha Fly and there's a Vapor Fly. You know, there's a Endorphin Pro, there's an Endorphin Elite. First off, they all look different.
Yeah.
And they feel completely different. There's a slight difference between this and the Sky. Like, it's not like that big of a deal.
so just to sort of put a little bow on that, Thomas and I both prefer the Edge over the Sky in this iteration of the shoe.
Yep, that's the truth.
All right.
All right, so that wraps it up. And if you could do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to the channel would be great. If you like this video, we have videos all the time. And we're really excited. We've even brought on the dirt division with Taylor. So you're going to be getting a lot more trail reviews on this channel. You're going to want to stay tuned for that if you're interested in trail running. He's doing a great job. People are really loving those reviews. So go ahead, subscribe. And then the best way to see everything that we're doing is to go to the website, believeintherun.com, sign up for our email, which comes out once a week, and pretty much lists everything that we're talking about or anything that we're reviewing.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, except for the podcast, but yeah.
Yeah, we do have 2 podcasts, The Drop and Fuel for the Soul with sports dietitian Meaghan Featherston. And of course, find us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Strava.
All right, thanks for tuning in.